rank the top 15 wide receivers in all of college football heading into 2024. I've already done this by conference, the P4 conferences, SEC, ACC, Big 10, and Big 12. I just did the G5 as well, but now I'm grouping them all together, and I'm just going to do a huge ranking, top 15 in all of college football. So as you know, this was a very hard ranking, and I left out so many good names. I'm not even going to mention some because they might piss you off and you might not even watch this video, but here are my top 15 wide receivers. Number 15, starting out hot, Travis Hunter at Colorado. Had a great season last year, 720 yards, 9 touchdowns for Colorado and Shedeur Sanders. That connection was awesome. When it was on the field, he did miss 3 games after that Colorado State game where he took that big hit. But also, this guy played on defense, man. Travis Hunter can do it all. One of the best players in all of college football, but as far as the wide receiver position, he makes my top 15 at number 15. Number 14, Jalen Royals at Utah State. Yeah, G5 wide receiver made this list, and spoiler alert, there's going to be 2 more ahead of him. But Jalen Royals at Utah State is so good. He can do it all. 1,100 yards last season. I want to say he had 8 touchdowns or so. He can do it all for Utah State. One thing I talked about in my G5 wide receiver rankings that scares me is the switch up at quarterback for Utah State. They don't have Cooper Legaz anymore, McKay Halstead, or I think Levi Williams. Now they have Spencer Petras from Iowa or Bryson Barnes, the second stringer from Utah last season. So yeah, that scares me a little bit, but Jalen Royals is so good, it might not matter. Jalen Royals also had 15 touchdowns last year, not 8 touchdowns. So I almost cut him in half. He had 1,100 yards and 15 touchdowns. I'm getting all my stats confused, but obviously he balled out. Number 13, Colin Lacey, new wide receiver at Louisville. He comes over from South Alabama, where he spent 4 seasons there. So he's going into his 5th year of college football. 1,300 yards and 7 touchdowns last season for South Alabama. Just did it all. And I think he can do it all again this year for Louisville. Louisville has Tyler Shuck at quarterback. So it's going to be a huge connection. It's going to be a really fun thing to watch this season. Number 12, Xavier Restrepo at Miami. He's going into his 5th season. Had 1,100 yards last season and 6 touchdowns for Miami in 2023. And I don't even have to talk about all the hype surrounding Miami. They have all the transfers. They got Cam Ward at quarterback, Damian Martinez at running back. They have playoff hopes. They have ACC title hopes, obviously, and it's going to be awesome to watch. And Xavier Restrepo is the only Miami receiver that made this list, but they have so many weapons over there in Miami. Number 11, Juice Wells at Ole Miss, new receiver from Ole Miss. He spent all of his career at South Carolina so far, and Juice Wells does not get a lot of mentions or anything, probably because we didn't see him a lot last year. He only played in 3 games, got hurt very early on in that Georgia game where he had a touchdown before he got injured in that game. But in 2022, man, this man was all over the place. 940 yards. I want to say he had like 6 touchdowns. And if you remember when South Carolina and Spencer Rattler went on that wild 2-game stretch where they beat Tennessee and Clemson back-to-back weeks, he had 177 yards versus Tennessee, where they put up 63 on them, and then the next week he had 130 yards and 2 touchdowns against a really elite Clemson defense that season. So he comes in at number 11 for me, and I'm so excited to watch him in that Ole Miss offense. Number 10, Ricky White at UNLV, the second G5 wide receiver on this list. He's going into his 4th season. He started off at Michigan, actually, and last season for the Rebels, he put up 1,500 yards and 8 touchdowns for them. He just did it all. In a record year for UNLV, Barry Odom came in, took them to the Mountain West Championship and a bowl game. They ended up losing the Mountain West Championship to Boise State, but yeah, they still made it to a bowl game, still got 9 wins. And Ricky White was one of the main reasons for this. Now at quarterback, they do have a quarterback change. Jaden Maiava was the quarterback last season at UNLV. He goes to USC to learn Lincoln Riley's system and should be really beneficial for him. But man, it does not stop for UNLV. They get Matthew Sluka from Holy Cross to be the new gunslinger, and he can definitely do it. Cannot wait to watch that duo this season. Number 9, CJ Daniels, new wide receiver at LSU. It's going to be so fun watching him in that system with Garrett Nussmeier. But CJ Daniels comes over from Liberty, and he spent 4 years there. Had 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns last season, averaged 19 yards a catch. So this year at LSU, it will be CJ Daniels, it will be Kyron Lacey, it will be Mason Taylor at tight end, and all with Garrett Nussmeier throwing him the ball, and it's going to be awesome to watch. Number 8 is Torrey Horton, my last and best G5 receiver in my opinion. Torrey Horton's at Colorado State. He's going into his 5th season. He spent the first 2 years at Nevada with Jay Norvell there, and I think that is a big reason why he went to Colorado State. I'm not positive on that, but I think that is it. Last season for Colorado State, he had 1,150 yards, 8 touchdowns, 2 back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons for him there, and he can just do it all for Colorado State. Number 7, Trey Harris at Ole Miss. He's going into his 5th season of college football. Spent the first 3 with Louisiana Tech, where he almost had a 1,000-yard season in 2022 when he was there. Comes over to Ole Miss last year for his first season there and almost has another 1,000-yard season with 8 touchdowns in a place where it was filled with elite wide receivers. Elite. Now, some of them stayed and some of them left, but he is going to be the number 1 there. Him, Juice Wells, Caden Prescorn. It's going to be awesome to watch. Can't wait for that. Ole Miss has unreal expectations for 2024, and they should, in my opinion. Number 6, Elic Ayomanor at Stanford. He's going into his 3rd year, 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns last year for the Cardinals, and it was a year where Stanford was not very good at all, 3-9. And Ashton Daniels is not the best quarterback in the world either, but Ayomanor still got his stats. He still got his numbers. And obviously people know him for that Colorado game where they came back from 29 and he had an unreal stat line. I want to say like over 240 yards or something crazy like that. But he was the one that got them back into that game. But people didn't really watch him besides that game. And man, he looked like that almost every game. Now, he wasn't putting up 250 yards a game or anything, but the way he could dominate on the receiving end and just caught passes, just contested catches, he is the king of those. Number 5, Emeka Egbuka, the Ohio State wide receiver. In 2022, this guy had 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns. Had a very up and down year last year with Kyle McCord at quarterback. He actually missed 3 games. This year, I think he will get his potential back with Will Howard at quarterback. Not that Will Howard is just beyond Kyle McCord throwing the ball. I want to say he's a little bit better, but it's not like a tier above him or anything. But I think Emeka Egbuka will have a bounce back year, and we know how good he is, and how good he can be. And I think he can really get back there. Number 4, Kevin Concepcion at NC State. He was a freshman last season, 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns. And I know I've said they can do it all for their team, but this guy really did. 300 of those 1,200 yards were rushing yards. So he really can do it all. I bet he can play quarterback if they needed him to. NC State this year gets obviously an upgraded quarterback. They get Grayson McCall from NC State. And Grayson McCall and Kevin Concepcion is right now one of the most underrated duos in the country. But I think they will have national eyes on them this season. Number 3 is Tez Johnson at Oregon. He's the best receiver in the Big Ten to me. Last season at Oregon, 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns. He spent his first 3 years at Troy, and last year was his first year at Oregon. So he's going into his 5th season, and last year he did those numbers sharing the rock with Troy Franklin and Jordan James in that Oregon offense. This year, they still have Jordan James at running back. They have a new quarterback in Dylan Gabriel, and that offense is going to be one of the best in the country. Number 2, Tetarola McMillan at Arizona. If you don't know how to pronounce this guy's name, which I'm probably not doing a very good job of, or if you have not heard of this guy's name, get familiar with him. You're going to hear about him all of 2024. You should have heard about him all of 2023. He was that good last year for Arizona. He's only going into his 3rd year. Had 1,400 yards and 10 touchdowns last season. Doubled his stats from 2022. Even threw a touchdown pass against Utah. He can really do it all. I know I've said that 20 times in this video. But he had 266 yards against Arizona State in the Territorial Cup Bowl. Arizona has high expectations, even with a brand new coach in Brent Brennan and a brand new conference in the Big 12. But with Noah Fafita at quarterback, Tetarola McMillan at wide receiver, I think the high hopes are valid. But at number 1, Luther Burden at Missouri, 1,300 yards last season, 9 touchdowns. He had 86 receptions last year for Missouri. He's going into his 3rd year of college football, and he will most likely be the first receiver taken off the board in the 2025 NFL draft, or it could be Tetarola McMillan, either one of those guys, but Luther Burden is my number 1, and he just led Missouri to an 11-win season. An 11-win season for Missouri. It's just awesome. And they have even higher expectations this season with Brady Cook coming back at quarterback. They have 2 really good running backs from the G5 in Marcus Carroll and Nate Noel. So we'll see. Their offense is going to be just as good as it was last year. We'll see how the defense holds up since Blake Baker has gone to LSU, the defensive coordinator there. But Luther Burden is just a game changer, and he will be again in the SEC in 2024. But yeah, guys, that is it for me. That is my top 15 wide receivers in the entire country going into 2024. Comment what you disagree with. Comment some amazing guys I left off, because I know I left off some really good guys. My next video will be all the tight ends in the country, top 15, I believe. Top 15 tight ends in the country. And then I'll do defensive players in each conference, because there's so many good defensive players, as always. But yeah, follow us on TikTok, 3 and Out CFB, on Twitter, 3 and Out _CFB. Appreciate y'all for watching.